I would like to introduce and welcome Damian Lara, the Deputy Director for the City of Albuquerque Economic Development Department. He's going to be sharing some updates on the City of Albuquerque's efforts on sustainable economic development. Over to you, Damian.
Thank you so much, Perry. Really appreciate it. I've got some slides as well. Did that come through all right? Okay, perfect. So once again, just Damian Lara, for those who don't know me, my background is also in policy. Spent some time up in Washington, D.C. as a legislative assistant working on livable communities, sustainable communities, environmental justice, CERCLA, and all of those kind of things that happened. Came back, got my law degree here at UNM Seoul, was the lead staff attorney for RESTEP, which is the Revenue Stabilization Tax Policy Committee. Worked on things like abandoned uranium mines, cleanup and reclamation that Congresswoman Teresa Leger kind of talked about. Then spent about 5 years as the Deputy Assessor for Bernalillo County, and now here as the Deputy Director for the City of Albuquerque. So I just kind of want to go through the vision of Mayor Keller. And so throughout my sort of history, the rebranding of the International District was one of the initiatives that Keller worked on when he was a state senator. I helped on that and moving that forward and talking really about livable and sustainable communities and investing into our underrepresented and underfunded communities here. I'm sure if you're not familiar with the International District, it used to go by a different name and was kind of, the plague of Albuquerque City. And we really, with the help of Senator Keller, now mayor, at that time, really started to change how we perceived our communities. Also, the Benefits Corporation, back at the very start of corporations, we as people, before you were able to get a charter or became a corporation, you really had to demonstrate a public good, which is very different from what corporations are now. Right now, it's, what is our main goal of any business or corporation? It is to pay dividends to their shareholders, and really changing that perspective away from, that's the ultimate and only goal of a corporation or of a business, right, is to pay out dividends to its shareholders. If you guys like Far Side, there was this cartoon where there's this man in a ragged suit in a fire in a post-apocalyptic world. He's got 2 children in front of him, and he's saying, well, yes, things are bad now, but, for a very brief moment in time, we really maximized value for our shareholders, and so that was kind of a awakening for a lot of us that have been seeing that in the last 20, 30 years. And so that was part of the legislation. Also, the way that the Keller administration at that time is as the auditor and even as a senator was having a rural expenditure budget, right? So you heard some of the other legislators and elected officials at the city level and stuff. What we hear from businesses, even businesses that are looking at Albuquerque and New Mexico for all of the things that we're doing, is, man, your gross receipts tax is, 1, is really complicated, and 2, is really high. We really don't want to come to do business because of that gross receipts tax. And then I have to go through this long drawn out system where it says, well, but if you're a manufacturer, here's all of the things that where you don't pay. Oh, if you're a medical provider, then here's all the stuff. But if you're, so there is about over $1 billion worth of GRT exemptions for different businesses, and that includes individual, right? Food and medical equipment is a big one that people have different varying opinions on. My personal opinion is just really to look at broadening the base as much as possible, reducing those and lowering the GRT rate as much as possible. And I think we can do that. It's simplicity, it works well, because maybe you're not paying on food, but guess what? After that tax was removed, it increased. And so you're now paying a higher tax on hygiene products, right? So your shampoos, your soaps, all, the pads and tampons, which many people believe, and rightly so, that are just as important and as vital as food, but you're paying a higher price for those. And so that's just my little 2 cents there. And then, of course, here is the mayor really putting forward an equitable and inclusive economy that works for everybody. And that means, as we're talking about here, a healthy, resilient, innovative, and vibrant economy that pays a livable wage and that moves that forward. And I think it's not lost on all of you, but I'll just mention it very quickly. Since time immemorial, economies have been predicated on increasing consumer production, right? We've got to build more, we got to buy more, we got to extract more resources and raw products out of the ground so that we can create all of those things. For us here, our vision really is to turn that on its head. And how do we increase the quality of life for our residents without having to increase our population growth, without having to increase our consumption growth, without having to increase our extractive industries and pulling natural resources out of the ground? And so that's the lens through which we look at everything that we do here at Albuquerque's Economic Development Department. And we're really grateful for the Keller administration to sort of have us move that forward. And so that's the lens through which we look at everything that we do. That's not to say that we're not going to support our small and local businesses with substantial support that we can do. Building a safer and stronger city, of course, we want to make sure that we make this a place where people can want to move forward to. Smart recruitment and retention. And when we talk about smart, we're looking at those things. How much water is this new company or facility going to generate or use? And how much of that is going to be either gray water or black water, or how do we recycle and put that back into our aquifers, right? Making Albuquerque a great place to visit, work, and live. And that's very closely with our placemaking and redevelopment, right? So how do we regenerate, again, increasing that quality of life in our infill, right? Not making sure that we have smart growth. We don't want urban sprawl. We want to make sure that our communities within the city, and we're taking advantage of that, minimizing urban heat islands, which are a huge problem in a lot of other cities, and reforesting and making sure we do that. So that all of that is really part of our economic development process. And then, of course, our workforce development. We here are taking a very broad definition of what economic development is as we should. And that includes education, all the way from pre-K and Head Start, and putting money and grants into education and youth centers, all the way to job training Albuquerque, increasing our workforce development, not just for our employees and for entrepreneurs starting businesses, but for those businesses who need to scale up and have a workforce to expand their businesses. So that really is the entire gambit of what we're doing forward. I know that we're at least I'm running a little bit late, so I'm going to skip through some of the other issues and kind of get really to the key areas that I think are most important for us. And when we talk about economic-based jobs, we really range, again, that entire spectrum. So many of you may be familiar that we've brought Netflix here, and they're going to commit to spending $1 billion of production and filming in New Mexico over the next 10 years. NBC Universal and other large corporations like MTX and Blue Halo are moving here and creating jobs. And we have created or will create in the next year over 4,000 jobs, and close to more to, if you include the greater metropolitan area, it's up to 6,000 jobs. That's more jobs that are being created in the last 4 years than in the last 10 years combined. So we're really proud of that. But again, we want to make sure that we're doing this sustainable and that we're creating and planning for any type of growth moving forward. So that means also supporting our local businesses that have been here for the last 20 years moving forward. And so we are providing those same incentives to local companies like Los Poblanos. We're doing, and I did see on that other ad, agro tourism and organic agricultural and farm to table industries that are moving forward. And so that includes Bueno Foods, and of course, also our high-tech industries. So we're really moving forward with build with robots and clean technologies and moving that forward. As you guys remember, some of our actual key industries align up with the senators in the southern part of the state and making sure that that moves towards rural. So while they are looking at that, we're also looking at the middle mile to make sure that that is, and the last mile, to make sure that our homes have internet and reliable internet and a competitive internet and broadband access to those industries. And so we're doing that as well. She mentioned, of course, aerospace technology. That is a key industry for us as well in the aerospace area. Great, well-paying jobs, and we want to make sure that we have the workforce to do that. We're also including in that directed energy. That might be sort of the Star Wars kind of industry, if you're not familiar with that. She also mentioned the biosciences and the film and technology. Those are huge areas for us as well. Very good creative jobs that increase our tourism, that increase our arts and entertainment as well. And we want to make sure that we do that as well. We're also focused on smart city and renewable energy. We are really attracting and pushing for those solar manufacturing, moving that forward. We're also recruiting recycling plants. I work very closely with our solid waste department, and regionally, this administration and has given me the flexibility to really look at economic development on a regional basis, right? So what is good for Los Lunas and Belen is good for Albuquerque. What's good for Albuquerque should be good for Rio Rancho and Valencia County and Sandoval County. And so we're really taking a more inclusive approach, not just here for our residents, but really for the area in general. And we like that approach, and it's yielding a lot more effective and more collaborative system. So Belen and Los Lunas aren't fighting for the same company that we are and trying to sort of race to the bottom in tax incentives, where we're in situations where a company may not have paid taxes for the last 5 years, and they lay off people when business isn't good, and they hire when they are. So we're trying to get away from that model, because that's not a sustainable model. We want to work together to make sure that if we're bringing in a company, that they're going to stay here for the long term, that they're going to pay high wage jobs, and that they're going to provide really good benefits. So whenever we do any local economic development act money, whenever we do any industrial revenue bond financing for them, those are all of the things that we're looking through that same lens to make sure that we're bringing them in when we're creating local job creation and economic-based jobs. We talked a little bit about our workforce development and really the placemaking as well. What makes a smart city? And that is really increasing. And again, you see that increased housing and small business support. We've put through here at the city, through the CARES and ARPA funding and all of the other grants that Congresswoman Teresa Ledger talked about, we've put that into affordable housing, $300 million in the city of Albuquerque towards affordable housing. We've put that through home renovation and improvements. Through our department, not only have we spent over $20 million in small business support for entrepreneurs, for expansion. So we talked about those individuals who were laid off a job or who reevaluating their workflow, right? So we put dedicated to entrepreneurs. We dedicated to Main Street businesses in our areas where they are, in our redevelopment areas, and different categories, including restaurants and entertainment that had been previously left off. So we've done that. But we also, as she indicated, really invested into our individuals, into our residents. So the first round, we provided $2.5 million in direct household assistance to individuals who were left out of the stimulus package. So those were certain Native Americans, convicts, or people that are reformed, people without immigration status. And we provided direct household assistance of $2,000 with CARES Act funding. That was such a huge success that the administration through the Keller doubled that, and we provided over $4.5 million in direct funding to households the second time around for households to provide that same assistance for people who were left out of those grants. And so we're really hitting the entire spectrum of moving that forward. And then we have an entire sustainable economy department that's being run out of our environmental health department. And we work very closely with them, doing things like the senator talked about, right? Infrastructure for chargeable vehicles. The city has moved away from buying gas and moving towards either 100% electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, and putting solar everywhere we can. We've gotten into cooperative agreements with our tribes and our pueblos to provide 100% renewable energy for us in the next 5 to 10 years. So these are all things that we're moving forward. And of course, having that inclusive and diversity workforce to make sure that they create those jobs and moving those forward. So we've really come a long way. We understand that we've got a long ways to go, including recruiting places like our solid waste, where we're going to be able to do recycling. And we're going to do that as well. But, you know, back when recycling, or the 3 R's, you know, that little triangle, we used to call that, you know, not only were we supposed to recycle, we were all supposed to reduce, right, the amount of waste and consumption that we were supposed to be bringing up. And we're really supposed to be reusing as much material as we can. And so that's really the lens that we're looking at. And those may be as things that you might think as trivial as banning plastic bags, reusing, you know, straws and everything else, and just changing the way that we're looking at that. And so we really are putting that through. So we're working with companies who can come in and really reuse all of those materials. As you may be aware, when China said, look, we've increased our middle class to a certain point where we no longer are going to be buying your trash. And so that crashed our market here, but it really, I think, awakened us, at least here at the city of Albuquerque, to say, we're going to be reusing and recycling those materials to convert them into construction, to being moved forward. And that's the lens that we're using for every company that we're moving here, and every company that wants to expand their current business here. And it's a model that's paid off. Like I said, you know, it works well because we've created over 4,000 jobs here in the city in the last 4 years, and it's working well. And it's one that's not only sustainable, but one that creates and increases a better quality of life for the residents of Albuquerque. So thank you so much for letting me present. Well, great. Thank you so much. If there is no, and I'm happy to take questions. I've gotten, it is an offsite meeting, but I've let them know that I'm running late. This is very important, not only to myself personally, but to Mayor Keller as well. And so we want to work with you, and I'm happy to take questions. Eric Griego and Perry both have my contact information. I'm happy to follow up directly with all of you. We will share, if you allow us to share your survey with our small business office. We have over 3,000 businesses that register and that receive and regularly open that communication. So we're happy to do that as well.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, that's excellent. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a great day.